Number 1. Ostrich heads. Ostriches bury their heads in sand when frightened. Natural history museums displayed this behavior in dioramas for decades. The Smithsonian's 1967 educational materials listed head burying as a fear response. Zoos printed it on information plaques. Through the 1980s, the behavior became shorthand for avoidance. Head in the sand entered everyday language as a metaphor for denial. But ostriches have never buried their heads in sand as a defense mechanism. The behavior doesn't exist, and ornithologists have been publishing corrections since 1961. The scientific consensus appeared bulletproof. Early naturalists observing ostriches from distances of 100+ meters reported seeing birds disappearing near the ground during perceived threats. The logic seemed sound. Large, flightless birds with limited defense options might hide their heads to avoid detection. Pliny the Elder documented the behavior in 77 AD in his Natural History, lending ancient authority to the claim. The American Museum of Natural History's 1958 exhibition, Birds of Africa, featured an ostrich model with its head positioned downward into sand. Educational film strips produced by Encyclopedia Britannica, Films in 1963, illustrated the behavior for classroom use. Then, in 1961, ornithologist Dr. Bertram Mills published field observations in the Auk, showing ostriches actually lower their heads to ground level to rotate eggs in nests, not to hide. The entire framework collapsed. This belief has a specific starting point. Understanding why it lasted matters more. The head-burying claim dates to Pliny the Elder's 77 AD. Natural History, where he described ostriches as believing themselves hidden when their heads were concealed. Roman naturalists observed behaviors from extreme distances without optical magnification. When ostriches lower their long necks to turn eggs in ground-level nests, the head disappears from view at 100+ meters, creating an illusion of burial. The barriers to updating this information were structural. Museum dioramas constructed in the 1940s to 1960s cost $50,000 to $200,000 each to build. Renovation cycles ran 30 to 40 years minimum. When Dr. Mills published corrections in 1961, the findings appeared in specialist ornithology journals but never reached museum education departments. The American Museum of Natural History didn't update its ostrich display until 1994, 33 years after publication. As of 2019, 12 U.S. natural history museums still featured educational materials or older dioramas suggesting head-burying behavior. The research exists. The exhibits haven't caught up. Here's what the actual research shows. Dr. Bertram Mills' 1961 field study in the Auk documented that ostriches lower heads to ground level specifically to rotate eggs, ensuring even incubation temperature. Dr. Douglas Mock at the University of Oklahoma confirmed in 1976 that ostriches never bury heads during threat responses. They run at speeds reaching 70 kilometers per hour or deliver powerful kicks capable of killing lions. The biological logic contradicts the myth entirely. Burying the head would eliminate visual threat assessment and leave the bird completely vulnerable. Ostriches possess the largest eyes of any land animal, measuring 5 centimeters in diameter precisely because visual monitoring is their primary survival mechanism. Yet the Field Museum in Chicago displayed the false behavior until 2003. This matters because natural history museums serve 55 million American students annually as primary science education sources. When exhibits lag 30 to 40 years behind published research, entire generations learn from obsolete data. And this same pattern of museum renovation cycles preventing scientific updates is exactly what happened with myth number 2. But that institutional lag is nothing compared to what commercial media did next. Number 2. Lemming suicide. Lemmings commit mass suicide by jumping off cliffs during population explosions. The behavior appeared in wildlife documentaries for decades. Disney's 1958 film White Wilderness won an Academy Award, showing lemmings leaping to their deaths. Biology textbooks through 1991 listed suicidal migration as population control instinct. The myth justified evolutionary narratives about self-regulation mechanisms. Environmental science courses taught it as ecological balance. But lemmings have never exhibited suicidal behavior. The entire phenomenon was staged, and the fabrication has been documented since 1983. The evidence seemed unimpeachable. Disney's White Wilderness, filmed by Academy Award-winning cinematographers, showed dozens of lemmings plunging into Arctic waters in apparent mass suicide. The footage appeared scientifically credible. Disney's True Life Adventures series had established reputation for nature accuracy since 1948. The narration explained the behavior as instinctive population control when lemming numbers exceeded food supply. Evolutionary biologists in the 1960s incorporated the behavior into theories about species-level selection and self-regulation. McGraw-Hill's 1974 biology textbook, Life on Earth, included lemming suicide as an example of population homeostasis. Then, in 1983, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation investigators revealed Disney filmmakers had purchased lemmings, transported them to Alberta, and physically hurled them off a cliff to create the footage. The entire sequence was fabricated. The foundation was fiction. There's a precise moment this entered scientific literature. The question is, why didn't it leave? Disney's White Wilderness premiered in 1958 and won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature in 1959, cementing its authority. The film was produced in Alberta, Canada, hundreds of miles south of actual lemming habitat. Filmmakers purchased lemmings from Inuit children, staged the migration, and used turntables and camera angles to create the illusion of mass movement toward a cliff. The CBC investigation in 1983 interviewed crew members who confirmed the animals were manually thrown. What made this correction-resistant wasn't ignorance, it was inertia. Disney maintained copyright control over White Wilderness and never issued public corrections or withdrawn the footage. The film remained in educational distribution catalogs through 1993. Biology textbook revision cycles average 8 to 12 years. McGraw-Hill didn't remove lemming suicide content until the 1996 edition, 13 years after CBC's expose. The myth served convenient pedagogical purposes, providing a dramatic example of population dynamics. As of 2018, 7 state science standards still listed lemmings as examples of instinctive population control, and the film footage continued circulating on YouTube with 2.4 million views. The fabrication is documented. The educational materials haven't been pulled. Here's what the actual research shows. Dr. Dennis Chitty's 1996 study in Journal of Animal Ecology documented that lemming populations fluctuate in 3 to 4 year cycles based on predator-prey dynamics and food availability, not suicide. When populations peak, lemmings disperse to find new territories, and some drown while attempting to cross bodies of water they cannot assess. Accidental death, not intentional. Dr. Charles Krebs at the University of British Columbia confirmed in 2013 that no lemming species exhibits suicidal behavior under any population density conditions. The biological logic makes suicide evolutionarily impossible. Any genetic tendency towards self-destruction would be eliminated within a single generation. Yet Disney never formally retracted the footage. This matters because staged footage presented as documentary evidence shaped 40 years of ecological education. When commercial media creates false narratives that persist despite documented fraud, we're teaching biology based on Academy Award-winning fabrications. And this same pattern of media simplification creating false cultural facts is exactly what happened with myth number 3. But media distortion is nothing compared to what happened next. Number 3. Bull color. Bulls charge the color red. Matadors wave red capes because red triggers bovine aggression. This appears in children's books and cartoons universally. The 1933 Disney cartoon Ferdinand the Bull popularized red as the provocation color. Agricultural textbooks through 1979 warned farmers about wearing red near cattle. The myth shaped entire industries, warning signs, safety protocols, farm management guidelines. But bulls are red-green colorblind. They cannot perceive red as distinct from grey, and cattle vision research has been publicly available since 1962. The scientific consensus looked definitive. Spanish bullfighting traditions dating to the 1700s used red capes exclusively, creating centuries of observational evidence that red provoked charges. The cultural logic appeared sound. Red signals danger across multiple species, including primates, so mammalian aggression toward red seemed evolutionarily plausible. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's 1958 Farmer's Handbook included warnings about red clothing near cattle, citing established aggressive responses. Safety training materials produced by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association through 1980 recommended avoiding red attire in livestock areas. Then in 1962, Dr. Gerald Jacobs at the University of California published dichromatic vision studies in vision research proving cattle lack the photoreceptor cones necessary to distinguish red from grey. Bulls respond to cape movement, not colour. The foundation was perceptual error. The origin traces back further than you'd think, and the reason it survived is even more revealing. Spanish bullfighting formalised the red cape, or muleta, in the early 1700s. The red colour served practical purposes, disguising bloodstains during multiple fights and providing visual contrast for audiences in large arenas. Matadors discovered that cape movement, not not color, triggered bull charges, but the cultural narrative attributed aggression to red because it aligned with human color associations. Red means danger, aggression, warning. The forces protecting this false belief were systematic. The bullfighting industry in Spain generated €1.5 billion annually by 1995, and cultural tradition held more institutional weight than cattle vision research. When Dr. Jacobs published dichromatic vision findings in 1962, the research appeared in specialized vision science journals, not agricultural or safety publications. Farm safety manuals didn't incorporate the correction until the late 1980s. Mythbusters tested the claim in 2007, confirming bulls charge all cape colors equally, but agricultural curricula in 6 US states still included red avoidance warnings. As of 2016, the research exists. The safety guidelines haven't updated. Here's what the actual research shows. Dr. Gerald Jacobs' 1962 UC study demonstrated cattle possess only 2 types of color photoreceptor cones: dichromatic vision, similar to red-green colorblind humans. Bulls perceive red as a gray-brown shade, indistinguishable from background tones. Dr. Temple Grandin's 1997 work at Colorado State University confirmed bulls respond to cape movement and the matador's body position. Rapid motion triggers prey drive responses in all bovines regardless of color. The biological evidence is absolute. Without red-sensitive cones, bulls cannot perceive red as a distinct stimulus. Testing with blue, white, and red capes showed identical charge responses. Yet agricultural safety materials continued printing red avoidance warnings through 2010. This matters because livestock safety protocols used by 700,000 US cattle farmers were based on a vision myth debunked 40 years before protocols updated. When agricultural guidelines lag decades behind vision research, workers receive false safety information. How many other animal behaviors are we explaining with anthropomorphized intent rather than physiological mechanism? What else in museum exhibits describes involuntary responses as conscious strategies?